You should really play Magenta Horizon. There, that's it. Just look at this. This game is pretty outstanding, and I have heard absolutely zero people talking about it, except for a friend of mine who playtested the game. I guess it never broke the insider space because at the time of writing, it has 25 Steam reviews, including my own, which makes this game criminally underrated. But this game deserves to catch fire, and I hope my video will inspire some of you to give this thing a shot. This is not an ad, I was just really impressed with what I played. Magenta Horizon easily leaps the hurdles that have plagued the other log of 2D games I couldn't be bothered to finish, by possibly having the most in-depth and fun combat system I have played in a 2D game. Warning, my little ape brain will not allow me to probably ever hit the skill ceiling in this game, but I can already tell it's much higher than any of the other 2D action games I have played. The bosses in this game require pattern recognition and creativity on the part of the player to avoid damage, or trade it tactfully with a larger enemy. The tool set available to the player is vast, but you are nowhere near invincible. Mistakes are punished harshly, and the enemies will fill the screen. Where the combat differs from things like Blasphemous and other 2D games is that instead of trying to emulate the now increasingly eponymous Souls-like tag that gets thrown onto everything these days, the combat system leans more into a Devil May Cry type of vibe, where combat is fast and unforgiving, and compensated with a hyper-mobile protagonist not like that, who has a moveset that dwarfs the complexity of any and all Souls-like 2D or otherwise. There is a monstrous list of combos that you have access to from the get-go. Just having played some fighting games and beat-em-ups, I was able to commit some reliable tech to memory fairly quickly. And then the game would say, "Gotcha, bitch!" and tell me that it wouldn't work. But this is not a Souls-like. The game doesn't say, "Here's your finite healing," and send you up against a veritable gauntlet of varying quality boss fights, like the many progenitors of the Soulsian. Is that a term people use now? Oh, Jesus. Fuck it, why not? The rot. The Soulsian rot that is infesting every genre of game now. But that's a topic for another video. Magenta Horizon lets you take hits. It does more though. I would say the combat philosophy is very similar to Ultra Kill, in that it wants you to trade damage. You take with damage based on healing, that when playing the game optimally is downright plentiful. The thing is, the game lets you heal easily, but it makes you work for it. It's not like many action games these days, where health is finite or randomly drops out of an enemy's ass. You are in control of the health drops. You are in control of when the health drops. All you have to do is hit those demons with one of your shiny green healing tennis balls. This creates an extremely tense back and forth of balancing your constantly fluctuating health bar, along with the resource management of those tennis balls, and the precision required to execute while often inches away from death, because you have to hit the enemies once they are glowing to get your health back. This system is layered on top of a character action combat framework that is extremely expansive, while never feeling overwhelming, and to my shock remained completely readable, even in the biggest of fights. I noticed that the arena areas were often not lower detail, but more plain, so it was fairly easy to see when an arena was coming up. Overall though, I actually like this, as it lets you pace out checkpoints more effectively, and overall helps with visual clutter. The best thing about this game, however, and I cannot say this about 90% of action games, are the bosses. I have a real apathy for the archetypal Souls-like bosses that are so fucking ubiquitous in every action game these days. Magenta Horizon has none of those. This has to do with their individual designs, but majorly just with how combat is structured. I hate to keep comparing to other action games, but the reason why these bosses are so refreshing to fight loops back to the healing mechanics. In Souls-type games, being hit equals being bad. And the ultimate punishment for being bad repeatedly is the inevitability of running out of potions mid-fight. Where Magenta Horizon upstages that philosophy is never taking you out of the action, because if you want the healing, you are going to work for it, bitch! Magenta Horizon's bosses feel so dynamic, because if you want the health, it is the same outcome as just slaying the boss. You gotta hit them with the tennis ball first, sure. This allows you to focus all of your time and mental energy on doing the fight, rather than cycling through menus. The bosses in this game are actually quite hard, but learning them never felt tedious, and in most cases, I could identify the source of my death more strategically and singularly without half of them being me being killed while stuck in an animation of me drinking a potion. But the normal enemies are no slouch either. They all have their own tactics that work best against them, and their hierarchy of importance and the way that scales actually reminds me a lot of Doom Eternal in a lot of ways. The bosses are also really fun. This is where this game differs from a lot of action games because every part of the combat is tight. Anyway, yeah, play Magenta Horizon. This game's criminally underrated, and you can try Act 1 for free on Steam.